Okay, good morning everyone. Hello again and a very warm welcome to the Digital Travel APAC Virtual Summit. My name is John Sinke and I'm the Director e-commerce at Hong Kong Disneyland. I would normally speak to you from our office in Lantau Island in Hong Kong, but today is a bit different because I'm talking to you from a hotel room in Hong Kong Island where I'm completing my 21 days of quarantine after a short trip to my home country, the Netherlands. I'm now 2/3 through my quarantine. And as you can imagine, I can't wait to be released, go home and see my family, my friends, my colleagues, and of course, walk through Hong Kong Disneyland Park again. But even if you haven't been locked up for 3 weeks in a hotel room, I'm sure you know the feeling of wanting to jump on a plane again, stay in a hotel that's not in your home country, explore nature, beaches, mountains, old villages, and connect with other people on this planet. And if you recognize that feeling, if you have that travel itch, you've tuned in to the right panel session. Because today we have an all-star panel for you that's going to be talking about revenge travel. This all-star panel consists of 4 senior experts from the travel industry. Emilie Couton from Accor, Shirley Lesmana from Traveloka, Michael Marshall from Minor Hotels, and Bhatt from China Trading Desk. To kick off this session, I'd like to ask each of them to quickly introduce themselves. Just your name, who do you work for, what is your role, and what do you miss about traveling? Emilie, can I start with you, please?
Sure, thank you, John. So, Emilie Couton, I work for Accor, the head of loyalty, digital marketing, and guest experience for Southeast Asia, Japan, and Korea. I miss my friends, I miss my family, I miss diving as well. And more generally, I just miss my freedom.
Fantastic. Shirley, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Shirley. I'm VP Marketing of Traveloka for brand and accommodation. What I miss from, let's say, traveling, lots of them. So I miss family. They are supposed to be home for Christmas. Hopefully they can make it this year. But I'm a foodie, so I miss, some of the food that I can find in the streets of various cities across the world. It's not just the food, but the experience. For example, in having them in a busy night market. I think that's something that I took for granted, but no longer, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we took for granted, that we now appreciate. Michael, you want to go next?
Good morning, John. Yes, Michael Marshall. I'm Chief Commercial Officer for Minor Hotels. Yes, I really miss traveling, actually. I used to travel almost every week, so it's been a bit of a shock to the system. But I think it's, like we already mentioned, it's the freedom, being able to jump on a plane and go somewhere new, explore exciting new country or new city, have the food, the culture. I think that's the biggest thing that we're all looking forward to as soon as we can all travel again.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sabu, you want to go next then?
Yeah. Hi, John. Good morning. I'm Subbu, founder and CEO of China Trading Desk. We are about 3 years old. We help international non-resident brands in China to advertise into China and especially to Chinese tourists, obviously, which is all up in the air right now. I think, like everybody mentioned, traveling is all about freedom and being able to just be where you would love to be, right? Escape from reality to a certain extent. So that's one of the biggest things that's missing, right? And especially for me, my family back in India, so visiting them is also a big no for now. So that's one big thing. So yeah, missing all those.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're based in Singapore, aren't you?
Yep, I am.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, fantastic. So we're all over the region, which is great. So let's kick off this session. Emilie, if I may start with you again, what do you think are the biggest barriers for consumers in Asia to start booking travel again?
Well, I think it's a question of confidence first in the safety and hygiene procedures that we have in place, that it's safe actually to go to our hotel, restaurants and spa. Then it's also the confidence about the flexibility of what they are booking and the ability to postpone, to cancel if something happens. Obviously, they need the borders to open, right? So in Singapore, unfortunately, right now, there is not much we can do. So biggest barrier is obviously the borders opening. And it's also in the offering that we are proposing to our customers, whether it's in Singapore, in Thailand, in Vietnam, is because it's only domestic travel, is how much can we propose experiences that are a little bit off the beaten track and that help the locals to rediscover their backyard, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So Shirley, how do you look at what the biggest barriers in Asia?
I think it's a similar observation. So the biggest, let's say, barrier will be on their confidence level toward health protocol and safety. But I think the trend is quite encouraging. So based on our internal data, and it's just quite consistent with some of the external data, the confidence for people to travel again is increasing. And actually, in the recent months, just before we see some of let's say lockdowns in May, the confidence level of the travel is all-time high during the pandemic. And I think this is a hard work that is done, a collaboration between private sectors for us, especially in the booking platforms, collaborating with government and as well with our partners to ensure that we can work this together, providing a safe environment for our consumers. And at the same time, it's also promoting new way of traveling to our consumers, because in the past, when they want to travel, they can travel freely. Now there are certain regulations that you need to adhere with. You need to a certain extent. That depends on the destinations. You need to wear, for example, you need to wash your hands. You need to maintain certain social distancing, for example. So yeah, I think in general, the biggest one will be on the health and safety. How can we convince our consumer? And then the second one, that depends from one market to another. Some are more elastic in terms of promotion, for example, like Indonesia and Singapore. And for some others, they have more concerns toward flexibility, for example.
Yeah, so what is Traveloka doing, for example, to try to remove those barriers around safety and health?
Yeah, so the first and foremost, we have Traveloka Clean Partners. So it's a certification for our partners that are committed to reinforce the high standard of health and safety protocols. So we also work together with governments. For example, in Indonesia, we work together with Ministry of Tourism and Economic Affairs, Creative Economy, sorry, to ensure that we can obtain the certification. And the same goes with Singapore. So we try to appreciate the partners that can adhere with those protocols. And based on our internal data, those partners that are adhere to those protocols actually receive 2 times booking in comparison to the others, for example. That would be, let's say, one of the most critical innovations that we did.
So in terms of the measures that your company has taken, what do you think has worked well and what is not working so well in the market?
I see. So I think this pandemic brought accelerate the innovations pace. So 2 of the most successful ones would be, first is Traveloka Live. So during this pandemic, we launched our live commerce. So this is so we provide a seamless booking experience. You can watch our live stream, get inspired by it, and then purchase it directly on our app quite seamlessly. The second one will be on our Traveloka Epic Sale. So in March, spending from March to April, we rolled that out to in 3 countries: Indonesia, Vietnam, and then Singapore. And in total, we are collaborating with over just Indonesia. We collaborated with over 27K partners. And we see for Singapore, we earn up to 65 times peak traffic uplift. And in Vietnam, we also collaborated with more than 1,200 partners. Yeah, those will be some of the critical innovations that we deem as quite successful during these pandemics.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see that working in those markets. And Emilie, for Accor, what things have you developed or have you implemented that remove some of those barriers to book travel again?
Well, the first thing was really about hygiene and safety procedure, right? So obviously, some of the government we work with have already implemented some of those procedures that we are obviously following. But on top of that, we've developed a label which is called All Safe, and which is really the most stringent hygiene and safety procedure in the industry that we've all rolled out to all our hotels worldwide. On top of that, we have a partnership with AXA, the insurance company, that ensure you that wherever you are in our hotel, you will be able to have access to medical specialists wherever you are if something goes wrong or if you feel unwell, whether face-to-face or online. So that's the first part. Then when it comes to booking, we have introduced new rates that allow the customer to book and to cancel or reschedule if needed up to 24 hours before arrival. And then when it comes to experiences, we've been quite creative in the different staycation, for example, that we've been provided from pocation with your pet, to momcation, to boot camp, to jungle tents for the kids in the room, and those themed activities have been very successful.
Yeah, interesting to hear about the insurance. So that must give consumers some reassurance to book as well, yes?
Exactly, yes, that's the idea.
Great, yeah. So Sabu, I believe you're very much focused on the Chinese market, yes? What have you seen recently in that travel market in China?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much quite an amazing market right now in terms of the recovery that we can see. Travel within China, obviously, it's almost back to pre-pandemic. I would even say that it's picked up even better than pre-pandemic. The most recent one was the 5-day May Day or the Labor holiday that happened recently, beginning of May, and what we saw was the domestic travel increased by over 30% compared to 2019. So that's the pre-pandemic level, right? Again, wow. Probably it's because that there's no international travel, so everybody's cooped up within China, so they have to go somewhere, right? So, but it's still a very encouraging sign to see that, you know, on top of what was happening in 2019 before pandemic, it's already increased by over 30%. Year on year, it's increased by almost 3x. What we also saw most recently was that, you know, before end of last year, it was all short-term travel that was happening. But this May holidays, we're seeing long-term travel, a longer period travel, long-distance travel that's happening. So this sort of gives a better encouraging sign that, you know, when borders are going to start opening, I think people are more flexible to go further away from their home, stay longer outside. So that's sort of an encouraging sign that we see happening right now.
Yeah, you mean long distance within China?
Yeah, correct. So it's still all domestic, but yeah. You know, it's almost people are taking 5, even 6 days of trips across in terms of where they want to go and how far they want to stay. So previous, I think during last year, especially after May holidays, during the November and December holidays, it was all short-term holidays period that people were planning, just taking their cars out and driving to nearby places and stuff. But now they've taken long rail rides, plane rides and stuff. So it's getting more open, more confident in their travel.
Yeah, I guess that's the upside of living in such a big country, that you can cover a long distance.
Exactly. You know, for me, especially being in Singapore, if I want to do a longer trip, I don't take the train. I take the bicycle. If I want even longer trip, I walk. Right? That's how you make a trip longer.
Yes, that's the difference then. So Michael, at Minor Hotels, you're working across quite a few markets. Are you seeing any interesting developments in some of your markets? Where are the bright sparks?
Yes, I mean, definitely just to echo what Subu said, I mean, China domestic market, we're doing better than we were in COVID, because people can't travel internationally. And and people are booking longer, further out, which is the first trend I saw last week, which was interesting for the May holidays. Maldives has been a great success story, and we opened our 6 resorts in the Maldives back in October 2019. And so there's, sorry, 20. There's a lot of learnings there. I think the biggest thing is that, you know, people were able to come without too much paperwork and restrictions. So you just had to do a test on arrival. And then you went straight to the resort. And then on the way back, you could do your PCR test actually at the resort before you went to the airport, you know. So this was making things seamless for people to come. The other trend we saw, you know, which is very good news for us in the Maldives, was, you know, people prepared to spend. So, you know, higher room categories, residences, pool villas, people were buying, you know, experiences, more diving, more sport. You know, people were really hungry to have in-room dining, you know, a little bit more privacy maybe. You know, there's a bit of concern about the safety, as Gladys mentioned at the beginning. But definitely the Maldives has been a big bright spot. Something else is Australia, again, only domestic travel, but similar to China, we're not quite up to our pre-COVID levels, but the business has been good in especially leisure-related business, you know, for our Australia hotels.
So we do see some revenge traveling already happening in some markets then, especially in the Maldives, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So I was reading about those vaccinations that they are offering in the Maldives, whereby you get vaccinated on arrival. Are you participating in that program? How does that work?
Yes, I mean, it's in the early stages at the moment, but they're definitely looking to push this, and we are going to be involved. So I think, you know, one of the challenges for many people is that, you know, getting access to the vaccine in some countries is difficult. I mean, we know this from the slow rollouts that we have in Asia or even in Thailand. So I think it's a good idea. I think it will, you know, it's not going to be huge, but I think it's something that people will travel for. Dubai is also looking to do the same, actually. You probably heard, but it's not yet in place in Dubai.
Yeah. It's quite extreme, yeah, for a travel agent or a travel industry or a government even to offer that to visitors, to tourists to your country. But I guess unprecedented times ask for unprecedented measures. So talking about what the government could do, Sabu, and any thoughts on how governments or tourism bureaus could help with vaccination passports?
Well, I think, yeah, from a vaccination point of view, you know, China is already doing something very similar in terms of they have a health code, which needs to be green, and it's mandatory for entry, even to travel or entry to attractions. So I think this vaccination passport is sort of like an upgrade to that at an international level. I think everybody pretty much needs to have something like this. I was just reading a news that Dubai airport was saying that it's probably going to become mandatory. Otherwise, it's going to be tougher to control what happens and how people enter and exit countries. So I think government need to make sure that there's sort of a unified way to make sure different countries come together in terms of having a standard way of ensuring that there's a health code that says you're fit to travel or you're fit to be in a country. But I think the onus is still going to be on you know, airports and airlines to make sure that who they allow onto the plane and who can embark and get into the country, right? So there is going to be a lot of collaboration and work that needs to be done together with the government and the airports to be able to make sure that there's a seamless way for people to be identified as safe to come into a country and be able to explore freely. I think that's the only way that you know, we can move forward, especially given that there's going to be huge disparity between different countries in terms of the vaccination and timeline. You know, I do read quite a bit about where people are talking about there's going to sort of create an inequality or a two-tier system where countries are not are treated equally. But I think, again, we are not in a situation where everybody can be treated equally right now, especially with you know, different variants coming up and unpredictedness of how things are evolving. As you may know, in Singapore, it's pretty much, we are back to lockdown now because of the flare up in cases. So I think it's very, very important that every country is obviously going to look at it very stringently to make sure that they only let the right people into their country.
Yeah, but it still seems to be a very fragmented approach. Yes, Michael, in your experience, from what you've seen in Thailand or maybe the Maldives and Australia, what do you think should be the approach? What platforms or organizations could help us in this area?
I think it'd be great if we can adopt the same platform. So I know the airlines, 32, 35 of the airlines have been testing the IATA system, and the airlines are going to be pretty much the first point of contact for people traveling. As we know, I've done a trip to London. I'm in London at the moment. They have to check everything from the PCR test to the paperwork. I think if they can all be on the same platform that is linked to a central system that the government has in each country, and it can be a smooth and efficient and less stressful process, then I think that will be good. I know many countries are trying to develop their own apps, and this could become a challenge if they only accept if you've got this app or the other. So having an IATA standard system would be great, and I think making it as seamless and simple for them will encourage more people to travel.
So is IATA working on this initiative? Do you think it's going to happen?
Well, they're saying it is, and some of the airlines are saying it is, but I haven't actually seen the dates yet for this to be launched. I think as soon as we see that, then people will have more confidence, and be able to use. If it's a simple app, they have the app ready. So if it's a simple app, easy to use, then I think that will help a lot.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense in terms of the consumer journey to start with the airlines, yes, because if you want to travel internationally, that is still one of the most important modes of transport, I guess. So we saw that there are some sparks, there's some bright lights within the travel industry, but regardless of what we're seeing at the moment, Emilie, do you expect when some of those barriers are removed that we can see some revenge traveling happening? I think we've lost Emilie. So Sabu, you want to take that question in terms of what are your expectations with regards to revenge travel? Do you think that something is going to happen, or will this more be of a gradual recovery?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting points that comes out of China as travel is opening up, and I think that might start extending out to other countries too. I think two key changes that we saw, especially during the May holidays, is more luxury travel is happening, right? So people are being more selective in what type of experience they want, whatever places they want to book, primarily because they have a lot more saving in terms of not having done a lot of impulse buying, right? So that's one thing that will happen. And the second one is there's a lot more private groups, tours. There's sort of your own bubble that's happening right now, where people are going with family and friends and people who they know, rather than going in a mass tour event, and that sort of is probably going to translate when travel opens up. Definitely, I think there is sort of a revenge travel that's going to happen because primarily, everybody has been cooped up in their own country, and they want to just sort of exit out and be somewhere different. So that's definitely going to happen. But I think in terms of how this is going to happen, it's also going to be sort of a very tricky situation. I think we've already seen that. With a lot of different travel bubbles that's happening. I know Australia and New Zealand had an on-off travel bubble. Singapore, Hong Kong has been twice delayed now. So it's going to be, there's a lot of these countries that are talking about zeroism and things like where there should be no zero cases. I think that mindset also needs to change from a government and from what all these different countries think, because it's not about risk avoidance, it's more about risk management, right? If you're looking always for a zero cases, I think it's practically going to be very impossible as the virus keeps mutating. I think it's building up a robust system of being able to trace, contain, and be able to ensure that both travelers and the residents and people within the country are comfortable about what's happening. So that's going to be a very, very big part of how the revenge travel takes off.
Yeah, because obviously in China, we've seen a very steep recovery, yes, but Shirley, if we look at Southeast Asia, what are your expectations based on what you're seeing at the moment?
Okay, so so we see actually a quite strong recovery across different markets in Southeast Asia, but notably on Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And actually, I would like to add some points from Subu's statement. In terms of the travel recovery pattern, we as this pandemic is, this pandemic has happened for more than 1 year. So we see that people are trying to find coping mechanism to refresh themselves, to handle the burnout during the pandemic. There are some, let's say, psychological consequences of this pandemic. So what we see is domestic travel recovery is actually gradually ramping up, even from the third quarter last year across different countries. And so that will be our expectation with domestic travel. And in some countries, for example, Indonesia, given the rapid popularity of staycation coupled with rising popularity in road trip, for example, that also contributed to the gradual recovery of the travel. However, for outbound, we expect that to be more of a, let's say, a spike, sharp spike in a way, and that really depends, let's say, on the regulations, because that's really high regulated. Because, for example, when we see a demand pattern in Singapore, when there are when the government plans to open the travel bubble with Hong Kong, we see a quite noticeable spike, let's say, in terms of search and interest toward not just to travel cross borders from Singapore to Hong Kong, but as well in travel bubble in general.
Yeah. So we expect a similar V-shaped recovery in Southeast Asia once people can start traveling again. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's fantastic. So I just wanted to understand a little bit more. Is Emilie back? Yeah. Can you hear us, Emilie? In terms of what the next 12 months will look like for the travel industry, if we see this recovery, do we expect prices to go up, or will it become more, or will it become cheaper to get new customers into the industry and start booking again? Also, will we see a shift from OTAs to booking direct? Maybe Michael, you can take the question.
Yes, if I talk about what we've seen so far, definitely we've seen prices increase in the Maldives, when it opened up. Also, just recently in Portugal, which had a green lane from the UK. People are willing to spend more. A lot of people have saved money over the past year, and they're looking to enjoy themselves. So, like I said, people are prepared to pay more and also book pool villas or residences. So in some of our resorts where we've seen the opening start, we're seeing the higher room categories sell first, which is interesting. And then people are prepared to spend on experiences. So especially outdoor experiences, or reconnect to the sea or the beach or the countryside. And the other thing that we've done is we've tried to improve our experiences over the last year. So like in Thailand, even for the domestic market, when we saw that recover, we introduced a new jungle bubble, this kind of glamping idea where you've got a bubble that you can sleep in and you can watch the elephants at Anantara Golden Triangle. We have an elephant camp there, and this has been fully booked, in the last few months. So unique, different local experiences. And then another trend that we're definitely seeing is people spending more time in the hotel or in the resorts. I think there's perhaps the safety, security thing, where people are a little bit cautious. So this gives hotels a lot of opportunities to do, more personalization, try doing, in-room dining, in-villa dining, or special dining venues to capitalize more on, spend in the hotel on food and beverage.
So that's good news for the hospitality industry now.
I think, opportunities are there. Opportunities are there, but there is pent-up demand as soon as the destinations open up. As long as it's easy, the process to to book. You have that flexibility, like Emilie mentioned. So you've got that reassurance if things change with the restrictions. But if the paperwork and the restrictions can be at the minimum, people will travel, I think.
Yes, yes, I can imagine. And Emilie, what do you expect? Are we going to see a shift from people booking with OTAs to booking direct because of that reassurance, that health and safety element?
Yeah, what we have seen in the past few months is that there was a slight shift towards booking direct, and clearly because customers understood that it would be easier to cancel or to postpone if something came up. I think moving forward, we'll see if that slight shift stays. Will really depends on the ability of the hotel company, the hotel brands, to invest on the right market when it reopens, and also their ability to leverage their loyalty database, which has really become a lifeline during the pandemic.
Yeah, I can imagine. But obviously, the battle between OTAs and direct hotel chains, that will obviously continue. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to pan out. What are your expectations, Shirley?
Actually, I don't really see that as a battle, because I think we're in a, let's say, bigger war versus the pandemic itself. So I think this pandemic is actually a very interesting time, let's say, for us to have this tighter collaboration with our hotel partners, because you know, there are a couple innovations that we drive and actually being implemented by our partners. For example, like online hotel check-in features, some of the promotional campaigns, and as well where we also expand our flexible booking inventory. And we believe with this, let's say, some innovations that we made together with our partners, we will help people and in general increasing overall consumers' confidence level to travel again, to book in a hotel, to experience attractions. So I think, yeah, this is a really, let's say, great time for all the stakeholders in the travel industry to work together, because I think we're in a, let's say, much bigger war versus the pandemic itself.
I would agree. We all want to help to recover and rebuild the travel industry, of course. So great, we're on the home stretch now. I've got one more question for all of you. And the question is really about, when do you expect the travel industry to be back to normal? And what will the industry look like then? Michael, can I start with you, please?
Yes, I think the key is opening the borders and getting the restrictions. So and getting the vaccine rollout accelerated across Asia. I think that will really help to get people traveling. I mean, we're looking for a recovery end of this year, and hopefully regional travel opening up, you know, later this year. Phuket is, I just got off a call, Phuket is still pushing to have the 1st of July open, with people with vaccinations being able to do no quarantine. Quarantine's being a big restriction for all of us. I know you're suffering the 3 weeks. So I think we should see 2022 much better, and then back to 2023. So leisure market leading it. I think resorts first before cities. Everybody wants to go to the countryside or to the beach, and then business travel coming back and MICE coming back, but at a slower pace. Maybe business travel doesn't come back to the levels it was pre-COVID. Maybe it's 20%, 25% down, because we've all used to using Zoom and all these conference calls, and hybrid meetings are gonna definitely be a thing of the future. We've already held some hybrid meetings in our hotels in Bangkok, where people from Thailand have attended and other people around Asia have joined in. So I think those are some of the trends that we're already starting to see. And of course, digital, the acceleration of using apps to check in, to order room service, to buy your experiences in advance, is definitely a trend which will definitely happen as we go forward.
Yeah, so 2022, what do you think, Sabu? When will the industry back on its feet again, and how will it look like then? What would it look like?
I think I pretty much echo the same sentiment as what Michael said, right? So 2022 is a realistic expectation. I mean, we all want travel to start as soon as possible, but considering what's happening, it would have been a very optimistic thing to see 2-3 months back. But I think with the new variant that's happening, which also makes it a lot more unpredictable. So I would assume that 2022 would be around the time that probably more traveling will happen. But I think it's also going to be a lot gradual, right? Again, like what Michael mentioned, leisure is going to lead the way, but it's also going to be more high end rather than the mid and the mass market that will come up beginning, because there is going to be still a cost barrier to a lot of things that's going to happen. I think everything will start opening up more gradually. So there's going to be limited spaces, like what's happening in, for example, in Singapore, where pretty much every attraction has limits. Everything needs to be pre-booked. You need to have everything done online. So I think same thing would apply to tourists when they come over. So it's got to be more pre-planned rather than impulsive activities that can happen. So that's sort of is going to start off before you have more impulse and more easygoing trips that can happen. I think that's going to lead the way. And then obviously, like we said, business travel is going to take a while. People are more comfortable. Companies are saving a lot of money, so they're pretty much happy with that. So I think it's going to take a while for the business to restart travel as heavily as before. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But you keep putting your money on China, I guess.
Well, I have to, but I think again that's a big market. They did over 165 million travel in 2019, and it was supposed to increase in double-digit numbers. And I think there's a lot of pent up demand. So I think every country is looking at it. Europe is pretty much waiting to start getting people back from China. So they've already agreed that they will start promoting back into China right now. So let's see what that goes.
Okay, Shirley, what is your prediction?
I think, so far based on the data, the travel recovery has a very strong correlation with the travel confidence, people's confidence to travel again, and that is derived from several factors. Of course, the COVID handling itself, declining daily new cases and vaccine distribution. So those are the factors that we really watchly close. So fingers crossed, let's say, for a quite smooth vaccine progresses, and as well a great COVID handling in those countries. And I think post this new normal, we kind of expect the travel industry to have been quite a new situation where people will be more conscious. They will still put to certain extent health and safety protocol even after the COVID is over for quite some time. We also see some trends where people prefer to book private accommodation, for example, like villas, apartments, and as well they're more appreciative of domestic destinations. They're more into exploration, rather than just exploring multiple spaces at the in a quite short period of time. They want to explore more, understand more about the culture, because those things are missing during this pandemic, right? Interaction with people. Not just visiting places per se. And we also foresee that some trends, for example, like a staycation and road trip will stay here for quite a while, because it has been on a rising trend for over 1 year, and people see some benefits in taking shorter trip destinations. It's much more economical. It provides them with privacy. So those will be some interesting trends that we will foresee post-pandemic.
Okay, great. So Emilie, when do you think the travel industry will be back to normal, and what will the industry look like when it's back to normal?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, so I expect it as early as possible. What it will look like, what we've seen now is people tend to stay longer. We don't expect the travel process to be very seamless, especially at the beginning. So longer lengths of stay that we see already. What would be interesting as well is the airlines ticket pricing that will help or not the revenge travel, and also the fabric of tourism, I would say, and all the shops and restaurants that contributed to the travel experience, would be interesting to see what's left, you know, in market like Bali, like Phuket, and therefore what type of experiences is left. I think that would be interesting to see.
Well, it will look very different for Accor as well.
Well, clearly the hygiene and safety procedure will stay, and I think the flexibility also on the pricing will remain. I hope that we'll keep that creativity in terms of experience, because whether you are doing staycation or domestic travel or international travel, clearly that's something that people are looking for. So I think that was the result of constraints. And I think that creativity will be very helpful moving forward.
Yeah, COVID inspired innovation, as we call it. So that's great. Thank you very much, Emilie. Thank you very much, all of you on the panel. That's it for today. First of all, I'd like to thank Emilie, Shirley, Michael, and Sabu for their time and enthusiastic participation. Last but not least, thank you all the attendees for being such a wonderful audience. We hope you enjoyed our session as much as we did, and hopefully it gave you some inspiration and hope for your own business. Thanks again. See you next time, hopefully face-to-face at the next summit in Singapore. Until then, keep traveling and keep safe.